Hello my friends, and welcome back to the Review Den, Season 2. Every once in a while, I come upon a gem of a game that not only is a great treasure to me, but I am so impressed with it that I want to share it with others. It's like finding that movie or a song that you absolutely know your friends would love. And Fire Emblem Awakening is one such title. This is a game that I would truly recommend to not only any gamer, but anyone interested in gaming itself. Now that might seem odd for a strategy fantasy game. You might think that a simple platformer or a puzzle game would be a better introduction. After all, they are some of the original archetypes of gaming. But my reasoning is different. See, from my perspective, an average person off the street might not relate to the concept of a plumber jumping on turtles, or have the skill for Call of Duty, and not everyone likes puzzles. But, I would argue, just about everybody enjoys a good story. A story of personable, relatable heroes working against all odds to defeat an evil villain bent on destruction. And Fire Emblem Awakening is one such story. But what sets this apart as a game is not only how well it hits, well, just about every part of its execution, but just how friendly it is to newcomers. Don't get me wrong, challenge hounds and veterans will have plenty of options to test their min-maxing skills here, but there has rarely been a game so well suited to introducing newcomers to a genre. And like any good fantasy or cape flick, what's at stake quickly grows to epic proportions. What begins as a small incursion by a mad king into your peaceful realm soon becomes an adventure across time itself against an evil force that may just threaten the very world. And it's no exaggeration either. Fire Emblem Awakening takes you from a humble band of guardians of the realm and manages to walk both newcomers and veterans alike through a story that encompasses the Fire Emblem universe. There's world-shifting cataclysms, seemingly unstoppable conquerors, dead rising from the ground, and a mystery swordsman who looks suspiciously like the very first hero king ever to wield the Fire Emblem. Let's set the table though, and just like the game, start with the basics. Fire Emblem is a long-running fantasy strategy RPG series made by Nintendo development house Intelligent Systems. While the series began all the way back in 1990 on the Japanese Famicom, I, like probably most Western gamers, was introduced to the series when it first came overseas in the form of Fire Emblem for the Game Boy Advance. And there was a lot to like. Nintendo took the high fantasy setting of RPGs and married it to tactical positional combat. Gameplay was easy to learn, but challenging. Graphics were colorful and had a nice style. Characters were all unique and likable, and my personal favorite, the gameplay and leveling were all very fast. These elements made Fire Emblem a winning formula, and they're all here in Awakening, though with some great new twists and options for newcomers. The rock, paper, scissors element between weapons is here and forces you to develop a well-balanced team. It keeps any single unit or type from dominating the field, although a few new twists mix things up. Magical airborne units such as Pegasi are vulnerable to archers, but very resistant to magic. Armored units can withstand melee, but are weak to magic. And though they are rare, you'll find weapons that have high critical chance or can outright supersede similar weapon types. Just watch your logistics though, as weapons only last through so many uses, and you'll need to make best use of what you have and who uses them. Teamwork has always been an integral part of Fire Emblem, and is even more so here. Experience is paid to whoever finishes an enemy off, so it pays to have a high-level hero or tank weaken units and let your rookies finish them. This lets you build a very powerful and well-rounded team, which again is crucial. It also lets you build up relationships, which boosts stats and let you enjoy some very funny interpersonal scenes. More on that later. And new to Awakening is the ability to pair up units. Pairing a teammate gives a stat boost to the primary unit, allowing them to take down powerful enemies and gain that precious experience. If the pair has a good relationship, the teammate may even step in to block an enemy strike, or make an attack of their own. Teamwork actually does make the dream work. All that teamwork will build your characters through the levels, and once you reach level 10, though preferably 20, you can promote them to an advanced class. This not only gives a big stat boost and new abilities, but some units can choose between advanced types. A healer can advance to a sage and get access to attack magic, or become a crusading monk and bring down the axe. A mercenary can become a mounted archer for ranged ability, or become an armored hero with awesome defense. Promotions are awesome, but strategists will love the class changes. Rather than promote within the class tree, you can swap to a range of entirely different classes. See, each class has unique skills that are given every few levels, and by picking and choosing what skills you want on what characters, you can develop some massively powerful or multi-talented units. It's more of an advanced technique, you don't really need it on standard difficulties, but it's fun to play around with. If you want a shapeshifter who can pick locks like a thief, or just want to keep resetting different classes to max out every stat, you can do so. The AI puts up a good fight, though it can be exploited. See, if you engage the enemy directly, they will target your weaker units first, so it's important to send in a strong vanguard. If you're really smart though, you can make use of the threat indicator and bait the computer by standing one square in their range, and sometimes get them into a meat grinder. Now, many missions have pressures such as units to protect or thieves stealing valuable loot, so this isn't always an easy way out, but it's a good standby strategy. Overall, the enemy can be defeated if you fight smart. Just make sure you don't leave vulnerable units sitting out in the open, and be sure to promote your units when the enemy starts using advanced classes. Permanent death was a notorious staple of earlier Fire Emblems. There were no resurrect spells or Phoenix Down, and all that is still an option here, but Awakening gives players a more forgiving mode where fallen units are just out for the rest of the mission. They return as soon as the battle is over. While a few old schoolers moaned about this at first, it's actually a brilliant way to bring in new players to the fold, or allow casual players to enjoy. It removes the stress of losing a beloved character or a heavily invested unit, and again, the old school mode is still there. In fact, new characters join the Shepherds just about every mission, so if you want to do it old school, the game helps to keep your ranks full, even in worst case scenario. Oh goody, Henry, I forgot about him. I like Henry. All in all, the gameplay is fantastic. The missions are all designed to make use of a well-balanced team, and building up a stable of melee, magic, tanks, airborne, ranged, and all combinations thereof is extremely satisfying when you use those strengths against superior odds. The Fire Emblem formula is perfected in Awakening, and best of all, it's made easy for newcomers. While this all may seem complex from a distance, the game actually gives you great tutorials for every single aspect of the mission, and feeds you new info and abilities at just the right pace. I've played games with no tutorials, and I've played games with impossibly obtuse tutorials which are so long or complex that my eyes glaze over. Fire Emblem Awakening is just perfect. It gives concise info on everything needed, then lets the players loose. And before hardcore players complain, trust me, playing on the hardest difficulty level will challenge even the most serious RPG number crunchers. You'll need to use every combination of skills and classes if you want to survive there. From an audiovisual standpoint, the game is great. The characters all look awesome with plenty of cool animations and weapon flourishes. Environments look pretty as well, although they can be a bit generic depending on what tile you engage the enemy in. Information is all presented nicely between screens, and any tooltips or descriptions are just a stylus touch away. Best though are the portraits. Every character has great screen-filling portraits that convey plenty of style and emotion, and you'll even get some high-quality movies from time to time. Equally as strong is a fantastic soundtrack. It completely fits with the proud fantasy style of the game and is worth listening to even on its own. Like the Vita, the 3DS had some truly awesome AV capabilities, and it's nice when games like this take advantage of them. Every fantasy epic needs to tell a good tale, and Awakening delivers this on all counts. In fact, I have to admit some bias here, but the story incorporates two of my absolute favorite storytelling devices. First, the story begins in media res, or right in the middle of a climactic confrontation, before shifting back to where the narrative hero may or may not have begun his journey. It gives a disturbing view of what's to come, and that victory may not be guaranteed in the decisive hour. And after a brief stint getting to know your newly found friends and defending against some raiders, you soon find yourself face to face with a visitor from the future with an ominous message. Like the Fire Emblems before it, Awakening has you fighting against forces and tyrants determined to bring an end to peace as the world knows it. But this time, the story has already been told, and rather than a hard-fought victory and triumph to grand acclaim, the unthinkable happened. They failed. Now, against all odds, your band of shepherds must face down vendetta-fueled nations, deception, and a dark kingdom willing to sacrifice itself to give life to a world-destroying monster, all in an effort to rewrite a future where even their best efforts weren't enough. Now that is my kind of story. I know that everybody enjoys their own different narratives and narrative devices, but I have always loved that warning from the future time travel element. The thought of a desperate second chance gets me every time. Don't get me wrong, everything in the game has a fun, bright anime aesthetic to it. It's not like John Connor from the Terminator, but it's nice when your heroes are given a weighty task to prove themselves. Awakening features about 25 main story missions, with side events pushing that up past 40. And that's before DLC. You can also take on random encounters throughout the map to further grind levels, develop weapon skills, or further relationships. The game is just the right length, never dragging on or feeling short. Where Awakening really shines though, and would probably save the franchise overall, are the characters. Fire Emblem always told enjoyable tales with enjoyable heroes, but Awakening pushes this to another level. Despite my gushing about the story, this is a character-driven game, no two ways about it. The entire cast is so colorful, quirky, and just likable that you can't help but get attached to them. Intelligent Systems deserves massive credit for their writing here, and Nintendo for their fantastic localization. These aren't dour Dungeons & Dragons archetypes. Every character has great anime-style writing, yet they come off as entirely unique. Best of all though, every character has interactions when they grow in friendship, and somehow that applies between just about every main character. There are over 200 support conversations in the game, and you'll definitely want to see at least some of them. These characters are great. Crom is the leader you want to have. He may be the prince, but he'll lead the most dangerous missions himself and never abandon someone in need. Lisa is the bubbly kid sister who likes to tease everyone, but she'll teach you how crucial it is to have healers. Frederick is the impossibly stoic and protective man-at-arms who is the perfect foil for the team's antics. Kellum, the man in the absolute unit of armor who, despite his size, is so incredibly dull that somehow nobody ever sees him or even notices him. Sumiya, the sweetheart Pegasus expert who somehow manages to always trip over nothing. Donnell, the nicest tin pot-wearing pig farmer you could ever hope to recruit, who actually becomes really strong if you stick with him. Lon Q, the obligatory too-cool-for-words mysterious swordsman with a crippling fear of women. Gaius, the laid-back thief who is an absolute sugar fiend. I can relate. Libra, subbing in for Lucius as the world's most beautiful priest and healer. Fan-favorite Zarya, who is clearly inferior to Henry as a dark mage, but I can see why she's popular. Churchy, the battle maid who tamed and rides her own dragon, which makes her automatically awesome. And easily the best character, Henry. Henry is a dark mage who doesn't care for plots or machinations or politics. He just likes chaos and fireballs. I like Henry. Oh, and spoiler alert, although this is a much older game, but because the story involves time travel, you can actually meet and recruit the children any of your characters have, which further adds to the roster. Yes, marriage and children were featured in Fire Emblem games before, but thanks to the time travel element, it's handled really cool here. It gives some touching moments as children who often lost their parents in the future are now able to meet and bond with them. Maybe it's because I have a few more years to my name than other gamers, but I often try to imagine how a title would look to outsiders. And every once in a while, you also come upon a game that just does everything right. It's rare, but it makes those occurrences even more special. Everything about Fire Emblem Awakening I would recommend. It plays fantastic and it tells a fun story. Even the medium of the 3DS gives it a storybook feel, like cracking open a story and being told a tale. Only here, you get to lead the heroes to victory. I always want to be a good ambassador to non-gamers out there, someone who could bring others into the wonderful hobby that's given me all these years of joy, and Fire Emblem Awakening is, in my opinion, the perfect game to do so. Who knows, there might even be a few out there who will try this and get hooked. As before, as always, thank you so much for watching. Please would you be my next subscriber, feel free to leave comments, and as always, be sure to keep going. You are worth it.